Okay, so first of all, when you deploy Flowmon probes and collectors, you definitely want to make sure you configure the flow export. So on the probe, you go to the section of the monitoring ports where you have a look on the global settings first. Active timeout 300 seconds, so 5 minutes is usually just fine. Inactive 30 seconds usually doesn't make sense to go below this default values. You might decrease them, but that will generate obviously more flow data. Export protocol, here you can modify how often are being templates sent, either by packets or seconds. In advanced settings, you can choose whether you want to do some packet sampling, so to process only some packets which are coming. We usually don't recommend to do that because you lose certain kind of visibility. Then you can choose which of the protocols you want to process. So generally, it's not necessary to enable all of them unless you have that kind of traffic in the network. So you can enable decapsulation of protocols. Also, you might want to use this autonomous system list in order to assign the IP address autonomous system number, which you can use later on in filtering. For instance, when you want to search for traffic going through the Facebook, you can just say autonomous system of Facebook, and you don't need to know which all IP address belongs to them. So that's one of the functions which helps you with that. Adding L2 fields into Netflow identifiers might break in some cases the NPM, so that it's optional, because the L2 fields, we mean this MAC address and PLS label VLAN tag. So if you have router on a stick, it can have then the problem to match the pair of flows together. So that can be something to disable potentially. So probably this could be a good option to start with. If you're running ideas, you can set some number of packets processed or filter, and for the packet capture there are some general options as well. Then on the monitoring port itself, you configure a target, so where to send the flow data on which port, which protocol. You might consider some filter, so just to send some flow to that target, and also you can select custom fields for export protocol, or you can keep it global. In advanced settings, then you can choose again, the same thing. So you can change what is in global. In the interface settings, you might want to increase the default MTU in case you are using in the network more than 1500, which is default. Of course, you probably want to process even the bigger packets. So this one, it's something you might increase, and then there are other options when you have the additional plugin installed. So IDS you can enable on per port, Flowmon packet capture, and APM. It will just tell you if it's being used or not. Once the probe is configured, you can go to the collector, and again in configuration center, check the collection just to make sure, okay, we are running. So that's good. Potentially, if you had to change the date like into the future or like back in time, you might want to do here at the beginning clear data storage, which will initiate it, delete all the data which were before, because it could be running for some time without anything, and keeping on the disk just empty files. So you can do that here at the beginning. You might also use the autonomous system list here, so it will enhance it on the collector. That's what we are doing in this case, because we might have some sources which are not sending this information. Select all the fields we want to store on collector. You can optionally select here everything. However, that will slightly increase the size of the flow stored on the disk, because it will keep also the empty fields for all of these selected options. Set up some defaults for sources, so SNMP details, whether you want to do live data check on the sources. Important part is then listening ports, where you can see when it's running whether it actually processed any flows on that, and you can also choose few of the options. So again, protocol port, you might assign timestamps if they are missing, or adjust them based on when they were received. So just to, in case you have some flow source which are not sending them properly, or doing some something strange there. And you might also define a sampling rate in case you have a flow source which is sampling. However, it's not being recognized automatically. You can define it here to see more proper rates in the monitoring center then. And the last thing is you also can create flow forwarding, so send the same data to some additional collector and potentially change, protocol for it or port whatever you need, or filter the data additionally as well. And the last bit on the collector would be to double check the resource manager to make sure you have a proper quota set for all of the profiles. So by default, we recommend to use for all sources about 80% of the storage capacity available in order to make sure it will keep all the data, but you might, for whatever reason, have different configuration where you prefer to have the data filtered in some different profile, as well as set up the quota for active devices and reports function, where in active devices it's free to store the MAC addresses and their activity. In the reports, it's about the computed results, so how long it can be stored for the top chapters and everything. So the more chapters you have, the bigger the storage should be, as well as if you want to keep the data for longer without aggregation, you should probably increase the quota from the default and then assign the quotas to the modules